get your ISA? How did they start making an impact for your business?
In this particular market, there is no inventory. The only way to build that up is by calling. It takes a type of energy to get on a call with a smile on your face and get an appointment. And I got to the point where I was too busy and too low energy to really, really focus on that. But in a historically tight market, and I'm going on listing appointments once a week minimum, one call that your ISA makes can lead to multiple avenues of different results down the road. I'd rather have someone else call for me than me not call at all.
All right, folks, we are back. I got a great one for you today. I've got Anthony Lamello here from New Jersey. And, he's here to talk about a little bit about himself and his business, but mostly about the impact that an ISA has had on his business. So, Anthony, welcome. And my first question is, give us a little bit of an intro, right? Like, who's Anthony? What does your business look like? Give us kind of the information, the background of who you are and what you do.
100%. And first things first, thank you guys so much for having me on here. I'm super excited. I've loved what the Power ISA has done for my business, and I'm excited to kind of chat about that. So first things first, I'll talk a little bit about myself. I've been in real estate now, selling real estate for about, I think, 5 years. I've done around a little bit over 100 million in those 5 years. Closed about 33 or did about 33 million last year in the Hoboken, Jersey City, North New Jersey area. Super competitive, a lot of agents over here. So, one of the reasons why I needed to hire an ISA was to kind of help myself stand out when it came to the whole list side, which is super, super competitive these days. I used to be a financial advisor and at Morgan Stanley, and, ultra high net worth clients, 20 million plus to invest with us. And I started asking them when I got comfortable, how did you get to where you are today? 80% of them said real estate. I said, I am in the wrong business. Time to get into real estate, and jumped in 5 years ago and never looked back.
Awesome. It's great. We have that in common. I used to be in the corporate world myself. A little bit of a different trajectory, but yeah, I said, you know what? I think my talent, skill, and time is going to be better spent, in another industry. But that's a big jump to make. It's not easy, right? You're going from a pretty cushy, corporate job, and making the jump into, self-employment, entrepreneurship, the whole nine yards. So that's awesome. That you made that leap. I 100% understand it. I remember, I didn't even tell anybody about it. I didn't tell my parent until I quit, and I was already.
That's hilarious.
Oh, by the way, I quit my 10-year corporate job. And, that was great. And I'm like, because I knew what you were going to say, right? So yeah, I 100%, relate to that. So you're building up your business, right? You're in New Jersey, like you said, very competitive market. For the people that don't know, because in a lot of parts of the U.S., the market's kind of slowing down. There's a lot of inventory. Not in the Northeast, guys. Northeast is gangbusters. No. Like it's, a New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. It's just crazy out there. Low inventory, crazy seller's market. So the listings are very competitive. Listing
extremely
is super valuable in that area. I'm setting the table because people are like, oh, listings are gold in the Northeast, the whole Northeast of the U.S., right? It's a little bit different than the rest of the country. So really, really valuable. Why hire an ISA? What kind of brought you to that decision? Why bring someone on, and how did that go?
For sure. And yes, it is. Hoboken, Jersey City area right now is extremely different than the rest of the United States. So our proximity to New York, if you don't know the location, if your listeners don't know the location, 10-minute bus ride, 15-minute ferry, 10-minute path train to get to New York. So, Hoboken, Jersey City is still a crazy, insane market when it comes to appreciation and the competition to buy in here. So I'll give you a very quick example. Last month, a home sold in Hoboken, listed at 700,000, multiple offers, sold for 800,000. Less than a month later, okay, those same owners that bought it put it back on the market for 825. Okay, so 25,000 in appreciation in 1 month. Okay, on the market for like 3 to 5 days. They're asking for highest and best tonight. They have multiple offers above asking. So that's just how insane. There is no inventory here, and what I'm seeing is a squeeze where it's like the inventory has not caught up to the interest rate environment that has kind of dropped, right? So with the 7-6 year ARM, you're looking at mid fives, high fives. 30-year conventional, maybe a low six. Inventory hasn't caught up yet. So in this particular market, in my particular market, um, there is no inventory, right? So essentially, you need to list to survive. You need to get the inventory, you need to put it on the market, and then you need to be the one to, essentially run the show. So, you know, as a new agent, I've only been in it about 5 years. Like I said, you don't have that portfolio of people that you've sold to in the neighborhood that are ready to resell, that are, referring you to every single person they know. So you kind of got to build that up. And the only way to build that up is by calling. Okay. I am extremely busy to the point where I can't call every minute, every second a day. I did, like I said, did 33 million last year. So I'm always, always, always on the move, doing this and doing that. So it was detrimental for my business to hire someone to help in that sense of calling everyone, getting someone to raise their hand, okay, and then I hop in once their hand is raised. Essentially, it was extremely important to kind of switch from buyer's agent to now listing agent in an extremely tight market.
I gotcha. And that's so interesting, Anthony, because I think a lot of agents know that. I think agents know that a strategy should be to focus on listings. It's hard to do. It's not easy to do, right? And especially in a market like the one you're in, because, I think when the market is super hot, inventory is very low, buyers are
Right.
falling off the trees. Like you've got people that can purchase homes, right? The challenge is convince the sellers that you're the right, guy for the job. So when you started
Sorry,
focusing
part.
on listings, was that from the very beginning? Was that just recently? And when you talk about calling, what and this is before the ISA, what were you calling to generate interest?
Yeah, I mean, I started my career calling because I knew that
Mm,
it was the way to get in front of owners, even people that want to buy, but just meet people. How else are you going to meet? How else are you going to make, you know, I mean, you make about a couple hundred calls, you're only going to get about 20 to 30 connections on the calls that I was making. But how else are you going to meet that many people that own a home and just by sitting in your office? So I started my business by doing that. And, you'd get a listing, you'd sit the open house, you meet 30 buyers, and you'd sell to a few of those buyers too. So it was like a double-edged sword because you had the sales side and then you had the buy side. So I would say I started my career on calling expired homes, but I wasn't calling the expired and withdrawn homes that most agents were calling. Everyone's calling the person that was expired this morning, yesterday, last week.
yeah,
I
pretty
reached
crazy.
out to, yeah. So those people are getting 100 calls a morning. And by the time I get to them, even if it's like at 8 a.m., right? They're already exhausted and they're like, how does this happening? Stop calling me. You called me 20 times today. That was a different agent. It's that whole conversation. So
Yeah.
what I did differently was I was calling homes that expired 2, 3 years ago, right?
Oh wow.
So those people would answer and they'd be like, oh, you know what? Like I haven't thought about it in a while. Oh, no problem. Let me come and stop by, just take a look at the home, maybe have someone. And then, we talked about where the market price was at the time that they listed the home. I'm like, I can get you that price now. And they're like, really? And then, that's how I started listing these homes. And
I
then
love it.
once you sell that home, then you call the neighborhood and you circle dial. Hey, I just sold your neighbor's home. Multiple offers, 100,000 over ask, and it's just like a domino effect of calling all these places.
I love that because and this is also a moment in the market, right? Because you guys are on the upswing, very different than the rest of the country. But you guys are, I mean, a lot of competition. Prices are being bid up. That is an amazing time to call some of these old expireds because that's not
Yeah.
the market they saw, right? There probably was 22, 23, 24. Like the market wasn't as good as it is right now. They probably tried to sell. Interest rates were in the sevens and eights, right? Like, buyers might have paused on it. Like, I gotta wait for a better time. This is a better time. Like this is a
Yep.
better time, 100%. And you're able to actually have that conversation with them and get in the market. So you were calling expireds, and then you combine it with circle dialing to try and talk to people once you had gotten a huge home run, saying, "Hey, I've got 15 buyers left over, very depressed, looking for a proper, a home, in this area. Who do you know, right? They might be thinking that's a great
Exactly.
script too. I love that script. When you've got like a flaming grand slam home run, you're like, hey, you want everybody to know about it. Like, hey, check it out. If you want to sell, I'm your guy, and this is the person you want to talk to. So I love
Exactly.
that. So that's how you started building your business. That's really smart, by the way. Because I think a lot of agents, again, most agents build their business on their database, personal database, friends, family. That's great. That's really hard to do in a big metro area, like, New York metro. It's really tough to do that because, you might, who knows if you're from there, Anthony, if your family's still there, your friends are still, everyone moves and comes and goes all over the place. So
Right.
it's hard to be, if you want to work in a specific area, prospecting is the way to go. Like if you want to
Exactly.
work in a specific area, you decide where you call, you decide where you work. Super, super smart that you picked it up and started that way. And where did the idea of an ISA come in? Because you're crushing, you're calling, you're getting business, your business is growing. Where did that? Who planted that seed? Where did that idea get into your head?
Great question. So it's funny because early in my career, I knew that there was a barrier to entry to cold calling or to calling in general because no one wants to do it. No one wants to be rejected. No one wants to be, cursed at and screamed at. So I knew that there was an opportunity there to do the things that people don't want to do. Okay. So again, started my career doing that. And I would kind of base my days off of my happiness scale, right? Because as an agent, it's like, you can call all day and get no results, but it's just the next one, the next one. So like my happiness scale was like, okay, did I make calls today? Yes. Did I make a lot of calls that I'm happy with? Yeah. Okay. I had a good day. That's all I can ask for. The days I didn't call, I was depressed. I was like, I did nothing for my business. Obviously, I was still doing business,
You're
but the
busy,
act
you're
of
working, but not growing your business.
exactly there's a difference between working your current business and prospecting for the next deal, the next business coming in, right? So it came to a point where I got so busy that I just I didn't have the energy. It takes a type of energy, right, to get on a call with a smile on your face and get an appointment. And I got to the point where I was too busy and too low energy to really, really focus on that, which I was upset to say because that's the most important part is prospecting. Okay. So I said I have to make a change. Listings aren't just gonna fall into my pocket. I'm not just gonna sellers aren't just going to call me. I need to link up with a team that can help bring those listers. Just have someone raise a hand. Hey, I'm potentially thinking. That's it. No promises, not saying you're gonna list your house tomorrow with me for $10 million. Just, hey, I want to have a conversation. So I was on a few Facebook groups. I have a coach, so I think I was in one of the coaching groups, and they were talking about an ISA, and I just read it. I read it, and I did my research, and I interviewed a few companies, and I ended up going with Power ISA, and I've never even remotely looked back because I just been so happy with the service I've been provided. It's a whole you have a whole team working for you to get an all similar result of get listings. So
I
it's
love it.
yeah.
And there's so much to unpack there because you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people don't touch on this, but the energy, you said it right. The energy. It's not just making the call. It's not just making the call. It's the hardest part is picking up the phone and starting. That's it. That is the hardest part. But
Yep.
how you approach that call, if you're coming with your A game, with your head in the right place, you're going to have more success. Because I see a lot of agents saying, I call and nothing happens. Okay.
Yep.
Well, okay. You did the first part, which is picking up the phone and making it happen. Now you got to do it well. Okay. You got to come with your game face. You got to come with the right energy and you got to execute because two agents can say the exact same script, one with high energy, one just mid, and they're going to
Yep.
get really different results, right? And people don't really talk about that because the hardest thing is just picking up the phone. People don't, they go, but that's not enough. It's not
Yep.
enough. You got to
Yeah.
go in there with the right energy and execute it the right way. And then you're going to see some of the results start to come in. So absolutely love that. And yes, when you run out of time, where you're too busy to make those calls, you have a choice to make, right? You either find a solution or you're going to be on the famous roller coaster of income for real estate agents. You're
Yeah,
really, really busy, and then you're back to zero 2, 3 months later. You're really, really busy, and then you're up and down. And I think that's like the number one reason people leave the business, because it's just too hard to manage the stress, the anxiety of that. Where's my
for
next paycheck
sure.
going to come from? All
Yeah.
because they just struggle with consistent lead generation. So you chose
Yeah.
the other path, Anthony, saying, you know what? I'm going to find a way to leverage my lead generation. So you decide to get an ISA. Your coaching group said, hey, you should look into this. You took the leap. And tell us what happened after that, right? You get your ISA. What's the first thing you put them on? How did they start making an impact for your business?
Yeah. No, right off the bat, we hired someone that was already and my guy's the best. I love who we have hired. I was fully involved in the process. So it was really a smooth transition of getting an ISA to hopping on the call. So I was like, you know what? Let's start light. Let's have him start calling the expires. I'll have him call everything. I just want to hear him on the phones. And I was so impressed in like the first few weeks. I'm like, all right, let's actually now have him nail my market, right? So he's been nailing my market. We've been getting tons of hand raisers in a historically tight market, right? I can't imagine once this market starts to turn how many people we're going to actually connect with. But in a historically tight market, I mean, I'm going on listing appointments, once a week minimum, right? I'm meeting people. One of the calls that my ISA Josh made was an 8 unit commercial building in Jersey City, right? The people that I'm meeting at this building, it's almost a $2 million building. The buyers that are coming in, just the opportunities that's arising. This owner owns other buildings in Jersey City, so it's like one call that your ISA makes can lead to multiple avenues of different results down the road, right? So it's not only like the singular act of like, okay, you get a listing, but it's okay, you get a listing, then you have an open house, then you meet more buyers, then that owner might have more people, right? And I'm in the process of starting a team where it's like, okay, I need my team to go sit these open houses, so I need more listings. So it really went from, okay, let's interview a few people. That's how the process starts. You interview a few people to hired to hit the ground running, and we're already getting listing appointments.
I love it. I love it. And we guys say, what did they start calling for? Did they immediately take over those expires? Did they start with
Yep.
circle? Give us a little bit of that flow, because so a lot of agents, their biggest fear, the biggest concern is that they're going to hand off and they're going to drop off. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh no, if what if they're not as good as me? What if I'm the only person that can call expires in Jersey City? Like no one's going to be as good as me. I shouldn't even try. How did you leverage that ISA's time and their efforts to grow your business and not drop in production? You guys grew last year.
For sure. Well, like it was a lot of prepping. We prepped. He was taking like online classes, and he was like we would role play. And I call Ismail my manager. Me and him were writing. I don't know what do we actually call him? What's his actual
Is
position?
coach? Is the ISA coach?
Coach. So me and coach were just prepping, dialogues and scripts until we got comfortable. And then we started throwing him on expired, because expired is probably the least friction of a phone call, the least amount of friction in a phone call. It's like, hey, your home was listed. Did you know it was taken off the market? What's your plan with it? That simple, right? When you call a circle dial, you're calling someone who may have no plan of ever selling, right? Because you're just calling a neighborhood. So we started with the withdrawals, with the expireds. And then once I got comfortable with him on the phone, once he learned the script and learned what we're really trying to do here, now we got him on Just Sold. He's doing coach sent me a screenshot of him um, calling today, circle dialing. So,
Love
I
it.
mean,
Love it.
he's off
Love
to
it.
a hot start.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, 100%, because you're right. It's a very different conversation. Like I couldn't be more different. Like the expired seller. I mean, they literally tried to sell their home. Like that's their
Yeah,
definition of not even a hand raiser. They raised their hand, tried to go, and then failed. Right. Usually there's something
exactly.
to that. And then circle prospect is just you're calling out of the blue. Like just say what it
Right.
is. You call the phone book. It's the phone book. You call the phone book
Yeah.
with a really compelling message though. Just sold is my favorite script. Like that's the one that I used the most personally when I was circle dialing. That it
Right.
just it gets people excited, especially in a market like the one you're in. It gets people excited. Oh wow, holy cow! And and for the people that are listening, oh, but I'm not in your. Well, if you're not in the Northeast, guess what? You're calling. If you're in a slow market with a lot of inventory, homes are taking long to sell. You know how cool it is to call someone and say, I just got a home sold. I just got a home sold, and I've got a list of buyers that they're still looking. That's even more compelling for the people for the negative Nancy's out there. You should still do it if the market's a lot slower. It's even more valuable, right? Because you were actually able to sell a home in that area if a lot of homes are sitting, and you might even have a list of buyers that are still looking, right? So that's even more valuable. But Anthony, I love that you progressed them that way. How would you describe the results you've been able to get, with your ISA so far, as like nurtures, appointments, signed listings, transactions? How would you describe those results so far?
Yeah, I mean it comes down to building a procedure with your team that makes sense for you, right? So we have a whole procedures list. We have a whole income data list of all the people that Josh has spoken to. We have notes on all of that. So I have a whole sub tab of all the listings. I've got multiple listings. We're about to get our first closing on our team in probably about a month on that commercial building. So so we've gotten a lot of momentum. We are really just starting now to really figure out how we all work together, and it's becoming just seamless now. So I've gotten a number of listings, all up right now, and we are going to have our first closing very, very shortly. We have a few under contract now, so I'm super excited, and it's actually working. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. You built some really good momentum, and it all starts with those hand raisers, right? So
Yeah.
just to make sure I understand the process, Josh is calling, whether it's old expired, whether it's circle, different ones. He talks to these folks, they get interested, and then he hands. If it's a hand raiser, they're not expecting you at the knock on the door the next day, right? It's someone they hand off to you, and then you have that conversation with them. Am I describing that correctly?
Exactly. So Josh is pretty much just figuring out who has ever had an idea in their brain about potentially selling. And if they did, he sets up a time on both of our calendars for me to call them. Right. And then it's my job to go and nail that appointment. And there's another part that people have to understand. You have to consistently follow up with these people. Right. So it's like Josh is going to get their hand rose, whatever the correct word is. And then you have to go and follow up. I'm going to show you something. Actually, this is actually pretty funny. When I say Josh, I'm talking about my ISA. So sorry, I should have mentioned that.
Yeah.
But Josh got me this guy October 28th. Okay.
Oh, wow.
October 20th. Watch how many texts and in between phone calls too. Like this is he finally answered me once, they answered me twice.
Wow.
I sent them a video, but this wasn't expired. And this is how many times it takes. And then
Wow.
finally, last Saturday, he calls me. He's like, okay, come meet me. So it's not
Wow.
like you raise your
Really?
hand and it's like, oh, done deal, paperwork is signed. You're making, $10 million, listing sale. It's like you get a hand raise and you hammer those people. You have to be persistent until they either say, leave me alone or when do I sign? Those are the two outcomes that you want, right? And I wouldn't have that opportunity if I didn't have someone calling for me because I wouldn't be calling these numbers.
100%. And I love that you make emphasis on that because that follow up process is so key. And you're describing, Anthony, I don't want to say this is like a best practice. This is the only way I've seen this work,
Yeah.
exactly the way you're describing, right? ISA makes the calls. They find what I like to call them qualified sellers, right? Qualified seller lead, right? It's not an appointment yet. It's not, right? But they try to sell, couldn't do it, right? Or they're interested in selling, or like you said, they have a thought in their mind about selling potentially, and those people should be on your list, though, because it's a confirmed homeowner. You got the right number for them. That's key. You always have that, right? And they've got some kind of question or desire to sell their home. That's all you need. Give me two of those a day, and
Yeah.
I'll be happy as a client. And that's all. It's
Yeah.
all you need to blow up your business. Two
Yep.
qualified new ones, net new qualified sellers every day. Get out of here. You're gonna start listing, not immediately, like you said. It's going to take a few
Yep.
months. This is
Yep.
not going to be, this is not easy, but you're going to have a way to really, really grow and blow up your business because it just snowballs, right? 3 months
Yeah.
from now, 4 months from now, well, actually, we're at that point. 3 months later, 4 months later, those start to convert. Guess what? Spring is right around the corner. More people are going to get in the market, and you've got a stack of these seller leads that you're going to work, that you've already been working, and they're going to go, you know what? This Anthony guy, he doesn't give up. He keeps
Yeah.
texting me. Let's see what he's got, right? He might actually
Exactly.
be better at this than this other guy. Let's see what he has to say. That's what you
Yeah.
want. That
Yeah.
those opportunities. You want those at bats, right? How many at bats can your ISA give you on a daily basis? I like the rule of thumb of about every 20 of these qualified sellers should become a listing within the next few months.
Yeah.
Every 20. The game just becomes how quickly can they get to 20? That you should look at it that way. How fast, and you might even have a better ratio, but whatever that ratio is, you're like, how fast can they get to 15 to 20 of these seller leads? Because that's money in the bank. Like that's a
Right.
listing. And in the market that you're in, a listing is almost the closest thing to a guaranteed sale, as you can find in the Northeast right now. That's great. That's
100%.
really, really good.
And let me
Really
say
good.
one thing too that I think people don't fail to notice. I don't think anyone ever talks about this, and then just you and I talking now, I kind of thought about this, but it's also the opportunity. It's the more reps you get, the better. It's like going to the gym. Okay, the more reps you do, the stronger you get. The more listing appointments you go on, the more qualified calls you take, the more follow-ups you're doing with these sellers, the better you are getting in your process and you're learning your processes. I'm going to be honest with me. Honest with you. At first, my listing presentation was terrible. Okay. So and I was embarrassed to go on listings because I just didn't want to put a listing presentation together. Now with Josh getting me all these listings, now I'm like, okay, I have to actually sit down and focus on a listing presentation. So that's
100%.
also making you a better agent of like, okay, now you're more prepared. Now you have actual material. So when you do meet someone, now you know what to do and what to say. And the more people you get in front of, the better because then you perfect your art. So on top of the amount of, hand raisers you're getting, that's amazing. That's how you make money. But besides the money factor, it's also about fine tuning your sword and sharpening your sword. The more you do, the more people you talk to, the more appointments you go on, the better you will get, the better you will become. And, you'll just strive to be an unstoppable force in your market, especially in a market where there's 1,000 agents. How many agents are in every single market? There's only one way to get yourself to the top. You have to be a knowledge broker. And the more you talk to people, the better you will become that knowledge broker.
100%. I'm glad you brought that up, Anthony, because that's definitely something that I tell agents because a lot of folks, they want us to do prospecting, they want to build that business up, and I see a lot of them, maybe the first thing they want to do, or they want to perfect their listing presentation. They go, that's not where you're going to fail. Like that's not where
Yep.
you got to work on it. Everyone's terrible at the beginning. Everyone's terrible. When I started prospecting, the first coach I hired was actually a listing presentation coach. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
wow. I went on. I think I went on 20 listing appointments. I think I got one listing. Right? I gotta admit those numbers. My listing appointment, it was awful. Right? It was built for my friends and family. It wasn't built to an unmet seller that had a
Right.
really bad experience. Like it was just not strong enough. Right? It was built
Right.
for something completely different. You got to improve it. But I tell agents, if you don't get the reps, if you're not even getting any listing presentations, your problem is not your presentation, right?
Yep.
You gotta build those reps on the phone, have some conversations, convince them to even talk to you, and then you got to solve problem by problem. You know what I mean? You got to solve first problems first. You're not even talking to anybody, so you're not even presenting to anybody. Work on that on those calls. Get in front of those sellers, because guess what? If you do that, you're probably going to figure it out, right? This is we're at 2026 now. You can find a way to get a better listing presentation right out there,
Easily,
but
easily,
you
easily.
got you got to get those reps, and once you get those opportunities, you're gonna figure it out. But if you're not even getting the shot, you're not even talking to anybody, listing presentation isn't it. Solve
Yeah.
problem by problem. Make the calls, talk to enough sellers, get them to meet with you, get in front of them, persist long enough, get in front of them, present, right? Get it on the market, learn how to manage, in your case, a bidding war. In a lot other cases, you got to learn to manage a really high days on market, get it sold, rinse and repeat that, right? But
Yeah.
problem
Yeah.
by problem, it looks overwhelming at first, I
It
understand that
does.
for a lot of people.
It
People that
does.
are listening to this saying, "Oh man, I'll never be Anthony." Hold on, right? Like you got to solve one problem at a time. That's it. But you got to go all in on each one of those.
Yeah.
You know,
You have
there's a
to.
million excuses to not do it. There's a million with, oh, someone was mean on the phone to me today. Oh, I can't find the data. Like, guys, come on. Right? ChatGPT is the answer for most of your questions. People that are watching this, they
Easily.
probably get up and running just with ChatGPT, just giving you step by step how to do it. Then you got to execute and you got to find what you're doing wrong, fix it, and repeat that, and just repeating that. And I think that's what you did. That's exactly
Yeah.
what you did. Right? That's you were solving it bit by bit. You added leverage, and that got you even more reps, right? Even more opportunities, more at bats, and you've just been growing and growing, growing, and I love it. Awesome, Anthony. I know your time, and you're a super busy guy. Time is super valuable. I have one more question though. If
Yeah.
you were talking to somebody that's considering, like you were at one point, hiring an ISA, but they've got all those questions. Man, what if it doesn't work out? What if it's not? What if it takes a bunch of my time? What if that person's not any good? What will you say to someone that's in that moment of doubt? Like, should I do this? Should I not? No one can call the way I can call. I can't be replaced. What would you say to someone
Yeah.
like that?
It's a very normal reaction to have. And I felt the same way where it's like no one can replace what I, not that I'm the best to ever do it, but no one can replace the work that I put in. So it takes a lot of effort to take a step back. Hey, listen, I'd rather have someone else call for me than me not call at all. Because at this point, I'm not calling at all. Right. So you have
100%.
to understand, a few important things. Okay. First things first, you're going to have to create the process that you want. So, which is going to take time. This is all going to sound too big to chew on, right? So it's all a process, and you do it as you're going. You have to just dive in head first, trust the process, and figure it out how it goes. It sounds way easier than it actually is, but it gets better and better as you go on. You have to understand that, like any other lead source, if you're in the business, there's no immediate lead source unless you're doing the
Right.
paper leads, which also aren't immediate. I do paper leads, and
100%.
some
It's
sell.
18 months average for Google PPC nationally. We track this
Yeah,
18 months
yeah,
average to convert those leads. Come on. That's what
yeah.
it is.
And that's the major piece that being an agent, you have to understand. Okay, it's going to take time. You're not going to have an immediate result, and as long as you're okay with that, then it's the right thing to do. But that is for every lead source. There's no
Absolutely.
immediate lead source. So you have to go in here with one patience, understanding, okay, this isn't a passive income stream. You're going to have to work with your team, right? You're going to have to work on your procedures. You're going to have to make the lists and go through the scripts and do all of that, right? You're also going to have to work those leads. Okay. And if you're okay with all of that, then this is the right thing to do because it will put sellers in your lap. You just have to go out and perform. There's no better way to do it. If you have the time to call, call. The second you get busy enough or lazy or you don't want to do it anymore, you hire an ISA to get it done for you. And then they just fall in your lap and the rest comes from you. So that's pretty much how I would go about the whole thing for sure.
100%. Well said. I agree with you 100%. You've got the ISA gives you those opportunities, gives you those at bats, and you got to know how to run with it. And which I think you had that huge advantage, Anthony. You knew what to do with a qualified seller. You knew what to do, how to execute,
Mm,
right? You just
right.
needed more time to call, and you just needed more people to talk to. That's it. Anyone that where that's their need, they know how to close. Like they can close. They're good at what they do and they know how to get home sold. All they need is more sellers to talk to. I say can be a great solution to that, right? So I love it. That's why you're having the success you're having, and that's why hey, cheers to you. I think 2026 is going to be a pretty big year for you. So
For sure.
congratulations ahead of time. I think you guys are heading in the right direction. Appreciate you, Anthony. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing everything here with the community. People love this stuff, right? People love when people go out there and they talk turkey. They talk, the real thing that's going on. People in the
Yeah.
trench, making those calls every single day. So appreciate you, Anthony. You're welcome to
Of
come back
course.
anytime.
Have me back whenever. And if anyone has any questions for me, you can reach out to me directly on Instagram. It's ant.mello, MELLO _real.estate. Any questions for me about the process, about Power ISA, about my ISA, about my procedures? I have a whole procedure list. I have a shared sheet. We have the whole thing down to a science. So I'm always here to chat. Thank you so much for having me on. It was awesome. I'll come on whenever you guys want me to come on.